All right. Hi, everybody. So for this project, I'll have you know ahead of time, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. It's for the sake of the actual demo. You don't need to be doing this, but I did a photocopy of my actual drawing so I could draw on top of it. I'll explain why in a second. So we just finished up. We did a couple weeks talking about how to draw in proportion, how to draw 1 point and 2 point perspective, and how to draw a work of still life. Then we drew that work of still life and then glued it or physically moved it to our picture plane, and I just cut off the bottom there. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So the next step is we're actually going to manipulate and adjust this a little bit. So you will not be using your original drawing, or won't be adding to your original drawing. You will be making a new drawing no matter what. Some of the previous steps you might have chosen to create a new drawing. You might have chosen to just glue or paint on top of your old one. But at this point, kind of no matter where you're at, we'll be creating a new one, and I'll explain why. So we're going to be enlarging, changing, scaling our current picture. I'm going to do the same border here, just a 1 inch by 1 inch kind of border. And for this drawing, the purpose is that we're going to learn how to scale. So what if I have this picture, but I want to zoom in, right? Picture a pinch zoom. If I want to zoom into this, I need to find a way to draw it larger. Now I could just freehand it and hope for the best, or we could use a technique called the grid method. Now I myself do a lot of mural painting really, really large on the side of a building. And when you draw a mural, assuming you don't have a projector, you tend to use the grid method. There's some other methods that are very similar to it, but all in all, it's the same concept. The idea being basically you're going to draw a grid over top of your picture, say, I don't know, like a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. Then we come over to our current picture that is now 1 inch by 1 inch, and we will have doubled, right, going from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, doubled the size of our picture. We'll be drawing larger, right? You could do the same thing in reverse and draw smaller. You could go from a 1/2 inch to 5 inches and draw it even bigger. But the key to this project, I'll tell you hands down, no doubt, the key to this project is draw one square at a time. I know it sounds like a lot of work. I promise it won't be. It's gonna be like putting a puzzle together, kind of mind off kind of work. You can put Netflix on in the background and just doodle. But hands down, without a doubt, that is the trick. If you find that you're struggling with this project, just go one square at a time. A lot of students try to take a picture, and try to freehand it and draw it over top of the grid, and it just doesn't work. One square at a time, like a puzzle, okay? So that's why I made a photocopy of my picture so I can just draw my grid right on top. You can draw right on top of your original, but I'm gonna keep this for future demo purposes. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, we want to twist and move and manipulate our current artwork a little bit. So for my sake, I am going to do a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch grid. And over here on my new piece of paper, I want to zoom in. So I'm going to do a 1 inch by 1 inch. So double the current scale. You are more than welcome to do, a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch and then jump up to 4 inches by 4 inches. You can do any scale that you want. I don't care. It's completely up to you. Okay. So I'm going from a 1/2 inch to a whole inch, so just a little bit larger. Again, for the sake of demo purposes, I'm going to use a red crayon because I'm still sticking with my used cheap stuff I found at the dollar store method. You can use anything you want to. A normal number 2 pencil is perfectly fine, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. One last thing, we're going to add a twist into the mix. We're not just going to zoom in, but we're actually going to rotate. So you can rotate your paper any which way you want to, but I do want you to turn or manipulate that paper in some way. Do not just do a straightforward grid. It's going to be too boring. We want to mix it up a little bit. Now, how much you choose to turn it, again, is very much up to you. I think in my case, I don't know, let's see. Yeah, that works for me. So think to yourself, whatever your full scale is going to be. In my case, again, it's a 1 inch by 1 inch grid. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to use literally the width of my ruler. But what you would be doing is lining up your ruler, marking out 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch all the way across, doing the same thing a second time And then you'll just match those dots one to the other, okay? Again, in my case, I'm gonna go ahead and cheat. If you ever want to get things perfectly straight, just use the edge of your paper up here. The paper is cut straight, and that will make your ruler straight. So I'm just gonna do that, lining it up along the way. When you are done doing your scale process here, when you're done doing your scaled drawing, do not clean it up. And also, this is the one and only time, don't color it in. Do not take your Sharpies and your markers and stuff. Don't color in jet black. Don't get out your watercolors and do your grayscale. This should just be purely line art. That's it. In case you're wondering why, you'll find out during our next project when we introduce color. Okay? Surprise, spoiler alert. But there we go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scale this up. The reason why I'm scaling my finished project before I start scaling or putting the grid on my paper here is an actual reason. So this will let me know, okay, so at 1 inch by 1 inch, it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a tiny bit. So let's just call it 8 because I'm bad at math. Now I know whenever I do my grid over here, it has to be at least, let's see if I'm going by half, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whatever I draw has to be around 4 inches. So you can think to yourself about where is this gonna go? What do you want to get into your picture? What are we gonna lose in that process? For my sake, for the sake of the demo, I'm gonna try and get a little bit of everything. I kinda want the watercolor landscape. I kinda want my still life bottle. I want my tessellation. I want my text. I'm gonna try and get everything. It may not be the strongest composition. I'm doing that for the sake of the demo. But feel free, if you just love this one upper corner here, then go with that and ditch the rest. That's perfectly fine, okay? So for our purposes here, I'm gonna try, like I said, to get a little bit of everything. So something like that should do fine. So again, I'm kind of lining it up here. Somewhere here, I'll switch my colors. We'll use the red. So somewhere about there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I am gonna do 9, just in case I want to adjust things along the way. So that gives me a nice clean line. Now, how many am I going tall? Let's figure that out. Okay, same thing as before. I am going to cheat. You do not have to. You are welcome to actually measure out. But I figure you don't really need a demonstration of me measuring things. It'd be kind of boring. Something else to think about, make sure that your grid is the same, is a square. Sometimes I'll have students where they will do squares over on their printed version, and then for whatever reason they choose to do some different shape over here. That is a good way to warp your picture, which can actually result in pretty neat effects. I used to do an assignment where instead of straight lines, we did kind of wobbly lines, and you had to bend each picture. It looks cool, it kind of comes out looking cubist, but that's not what we're doing here. All right, so let's see, where do we end up? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say a half, so let's call it 6. So, same thing, come over here, line her up, right about there, and again, let's just draw a straight line, like that. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that's about it right there. I'm gonna do 7, maybe I wanna notch it down a little bit. And heck, let's do 8, because why not? We're here. Okay. Then you just grid it off. There's nothing more to it than that. So just kind of make your lines, get your grid. I do suggest, personally, to draw your lines on either side and connect them. Otherwise you could end up with kind of skewed lines and it could look kind of funky. So let's just do that real quick. Half inch, half inch. In case you're wondering, again, just to repeat, no, you don't need to use crayons. I just literally had one in arm's reach, so that's why I'm doing that. You can use your pencil or a pen or anything you want, because when we're done, this version of your drawing is getting tossed in the trash heap. we will be done with it. A lot of times artists will work on artwork in this kind of iterative process. They'll go through and draw something where they're not really trying to get a finished result. It's more about the process. There's literally a type of art called process art, which shows the process and kind of ignores the finished product. There's more to it than that, but just to summarize. So understand that what we're doing, we really are following in the footsteps of a lot of amazing artists. Just the idea that you could create something and kind of think about what you're doing. Think and choose what color you want, what style you want. Everything builds on itself so that when you're done, you have something with a significantly deeper meaning than you would have previously. Okay? All right. So whenever you're in the art museum, whenever you're thinking and reading those little cue card things on the side of the painting, if they ever feel a little fake, right, a little bit too deep for their own good, that's where it comes from. These artists are genuinely thinking about stuff at that level. But we, the viewer, sometimes we miss things in translation. All right, so my grid is ready. I've got a little bit of the watercolor, a little bit of the text, a little bit of the tessellation. It's working pretty well. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here to my picture. And again, I'm just gonna go through and draw one square at a time. You might have to do a little bit of light shading. If you do so, please do with a pencil so that we can erase it later, because we will be painting on this during our next assignment, all right? I'm gonna go ahead and do just that, going one square at a time. You'll see my picture slowly develop as I draw in fast motion here, in fast forward mode, but that's all the project. So when you're done, we want line art, as little shading as you can get away with, knowing that we're going to be painting it later. All right, let's give it a try. All right, so a couple quick notes now that I've finished up. You'll notice a couple things. Once I was done with the actual drawing, I did go back and clean everything up. Even though I went square by square, you saw how a lot of my lines didn't match up. That's perfectly okay. Then when you're done, you go back and, use your ruler, kind of freehand it, smooth everything out and clean it up. For the sake of our project, you are welcome to erase the lines of your grid, or you can leave them on for this assignment. They will be gone during our next assignment. What's going to happen is we're going to be using our picture here to kind of figure out where all of our grayscale values are. And then next class, or next project, we'll go through and start thinking about how we want to transform those into color. One last note, this is a really good opportunity. You can do this at any point in the entire course, but this is a really good opportunity if you wanted to go through and clean up some of your lines. So for example, originally this line was a little bit lower down had I scaled it, on the computer. But in my case, I really wanted those lines to be perfectly symmetrical. So fix it now. Now is a really good time to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple little more touch-ups. I wanna get that tessellation pattern over in here. And then we're gonna go ahead and call it a day on this project. I'll see you next time, and get ready to break out your watercolors. See you then. Bye everyone.